Hello, and welcome to the Maple Moon podcast. This is Courtenay. I posted a Facebook post last night with a particularly prescient topic of autism because some people believe that there is a cure, and I'm doing the quotation marks, for autism, or that it's something that needs to be cured. It's a spectrum. There are those of us that are relatively high functioning. There are those who are non-verbal. It's a wide and broad spectrum, but this is what I put on my Facebook last night. What some people don't know about me is that my mum has to open bottles for me. Do you know why? Because they sometimes pop. She also has to pull me by the hand past dogs because they will often bark, as is their nature. When I was little, the teachers from my nursery pulled my parents in because they thought something was off with my coordination. This was around 2001 and was therefore easily dismissed by the doctors. The world is much too loud for me. I've always hidden inside when fireworks go off, but in recent years it has become much worse. I'm on the brink of a panic attack at the slightest noise. A sudden whisper is enough to send my heart rate skyrocketing. With dogs being loud in public spaces more often, a huge animal lover by the way, I sit in apprehension. I can't go to the coffee shop because there will be dogs. There are dogs barking in the front of the supermarket, so I have to run inside with my fingers in my ears, something I've been doing since I was a little kid. Then there are the tastes and smells I'm funny about. I am obsessive about things and people. I can sometimes be a little too much when I like someone, something that has gotten me into trouble before. I research knowledge with a ferociousness like you've never seen. I become fixated by things. I'm also easily overwhelmed. I'm almost 30 years old. There is so much expectation placed on someone of my age. We are expected to be fully functioning adults with jobs, financial stability, homes of our own, and other things. But I can't do that. I can't be away from home or from my mum. People think this is just something I can get over. But when I'm on these excursions absolutely heartbroken and losing my mind, they can't understand why. Pushing me to do things isn't helpful, nor is it a cure. Society has some funny notions about the concept of labels. How can we get support for something if we don't name it? And speaking of support, the current waiting list for a diagnosis is at least 4 years long. I have mentioned going for one several times to my doctors, but they only seem to be concerned with calling me fat, as is the case in a world obsessed with being thin. But while I don't have an official diagnosis, there will be people who don't believe me. They think I'm either seeking a label or asking for special treatment. This is far from the reality. Autism is a spectrum for a reason. There are those who are non-verbal. Some could not even think about entering a space with other people. I, however, am good at masking. I appear mostly functional, if a little awkward, in a public setting. I'm also extremely empathic and highly intuitive to the feelings of others. We are planets with individual climates, and new planets are being discovered all the time. They were also unofficial. Does that make them any less real? So remember this when you interact with me. If you have a dog, I'm not avoiding you. I love dogs with all my heart and I wish I could interact more, but the barking gives me a heart attack. If I swear because you've accidentally made me jump, I don't mean to be rude. This is my natural response due to my sensory issues that come from being autistic. To be labelled autistic is not to be branded, but to be saved. And that's really what I put on my Facebook last night. Because I have been trying to seek a diagnosis for a long time now. And it's difficult because the doctors just say, yeah, we can do that, and then nothing happens. And as I said in the post, the waiting list for an autism diagnosis is about 4 years if you don't pay for private, if you can't pay for private, which most of us can't. So yeah, and there's still a lot of education to be had with people about being autistic, because there are probably doctors that will say to me, well, you're fully functioning, you dressed yourself, didn't you? I mean, at the minute I can't dress myself properly because of other chronic illness, but generally, I dress myself, I brush my teeth by myself, you know, I can be in a public setting even if I'm, terrified, and people will dismiss that. Well, you can't be autistic then. But it's a spectrum. There are so many of us with different features, different ways of living. I've always been an extremely empathetic person, an empathic person. I'm very good at picking up on social cues. I can tell if someone doesn't want to talk to me, or if there's something going on with them, and they're always surprised that I seem to know. And we're told often that being autistic means that you can't read social cues. And that is the case for a lot of people, but it's also not the case for many of us. And this is the complicated thing about it. And also with the concept of labels, people have this funny idea about what being actually the name to be autistic means. It's not just a label for the fun of things, it's a way of getting support. It's like looking for, you know, right, autism is not an illness, but I'm using this as an example. If you're ill for a very long time and people just keep treating the symptoms, or saying, well, I don't know what's wrong with you and you can't get a fully diagnosis, how can you be treated? You can't get proper treatment if you don't know what you're treating. And it's the same with autism. By someone saying to me, Courtney, you are autistic, I can then go out, I can go to these support groups because I have the official sign off from the doctor, as most people want. I can say to people, I am autistic, these are my needs. But now I'm in this limbo where I know I'm autistic, but without that, professional official diagnosis, I can't access the things that I need to access. And I don't feel comfortable saying to people, because it becomes this back and forth about, oh, well, where did you hear that from? Who said that? Did a doctor say that? And nobody believes me. But for many years, I mean, I'm surprised it took me this long, really, to figure this out. Because for years, since I've been a kid, I've always been different. I've always known I was different to other kids. And not in a like, I'm better than you way, just different. And I've always known that. Since I was a kid, I've always hated, fireworks, dogs barking, balloons popping, anything that bangs. But as I've gotten older and in recent years, things have gotten a lot worse, like specifically very, very bad with sounds, particularly. You know, out and about, there are so many sounds. I can't go on a walk by myself. I have headphones and I play music, but there are sounds that just break through that. Someone might drop a big slab of stone if builders are around, and that absolutely makes me jump, and then I feel like people are looking at me. Or Manchester, I used to go to Manchester a lot before I got ill. The trams. If you've been to Manchester, they're constantly beeping. They're doing the horn to let people know they're about, and I have to hold my breath, because they always beep. Like no matter what they're doing, they're always beeping. And if I can't see them, you know? But even if I know they're gonna beep, it still brings on the heart attack feeling, and then I accidentally swear because that's how I respond. That is how I respond to my noise thing. Like, for example, my cat who's sitting right here, he'll jump up and sometimes make a bit of a noise, and that's just him greeting us. That's him being nice, he loves us, he's just trying to greet us, but it makes me jump. Sometimes if someone suddenly speaks and it'll be a normal rate or a whisper, that will make me swear. And I don't mean to, and it's embarrassing in public. It really is. I mean, it's really embarrassing. I've been in public where there have been dogs that have barked, and you know, I can say it's my podcast, so I've come out and gone, for fuck's sake, oh fucking hell, and I've said that, and then people look at me, and it's an awful feeling. It's embarrassing, but I can't help it. That is part of my, autism. And then there's ear defenders, but the problem is with ear defenders is that I can't listen to my music on my normal headphones with the ear defenders. That's the problem. Because if I'm out and about, I've always got headphones on. I play music loud when I'm out and about. I like listening to podcasts. And I do audiobooks, but they're too quiet to be out and about. So sometimes I really want to listen to a podcast and I will do it. But generally I've got full music blasting as I'm walking to and fro to places. Um, I mean, obviously for my own enjoyment, I like listening to music. I'm a big music fan, but because it drowns out a lot of the sound. And so all these years that I've wondered, because I remember probably 20, what would it have been now? 2016, possibly, when I was in therapy the first time. I remember just trying to seek, a different diagnosis. Like, I knew that just the general thing of depression wasn't enough. I have that also. I'm very much depressed. Like, that's always been a thing. I'm anxious and depressed. I know that. But there's always been something else that I've always known is there. And so I remember my doctor at the time, and my old doctors kept he kept arguing with me on the phone, going, well, why is it important? Why do you need a label? Why do you need a label? What difference does it make? Which is baffling for a doctor because, I mean, how daft is that? You can't treat cancer like cancer until you know it's cancer. If you've got a headache, right, it could be cancer, but you can't just give someone radiation unless you specifically know it is. Do you get what I'm saying? It was just baffling. He was arguing with me on the phone, going, why is it important? Why do you need a label? Why do you need this? And I explained all of this to him, but he just wouldn't listen. And that's pretty much what I found a lot of the time is that people don't listen. People just don't listen to me. And I mean, I guess I do know why I'm getting upset because it's frustrating. And, you know, with my current health issues anyway and being a larger person, I'm often dismissed as it is because of my weight. You know, every time I go to the doctors about the things that have been wrong with me, you know, um, my current health issues, they are often, they just look at me. I think the last time I went, the doctor was bloody stubborn as anything and wouldn't listen to me. But he also just like looked me up and down and then said, well, extreme body mass doesn't help. And they just don't, all they see is a fat person. That's all they see, you know. And that's not even to mention just the autism thing. You mention it and they just brush it off, going, yeah, yeah, we can do that. But nobody actually does anything. No one's even put me on the waiting list yet. And that's bloody 4 years long. So, things are very frustrating. I'm 28, I'm going to be 29 next year, and then I'll be 30, and, I can't live on my own. I need to be with my mum. My mum is like my rock. She knows me inside and out, she knows my ways. Without her, I'd be dead. Like, I can't function by myself. I don't have a job because I can't. Even before the actual physical health issues that I've got, I just can't, you know. And then things get scary when you see the government talking about people with a diagnosis like mine and how they think we're just making it up or trying to get a free ride off the government. And it's just, things are not like that. And it's very frustrating to have your sort of way of life erased, and that's why I can't imagine what it's like for trans people right now because of how they're treated. You know, people are just erasing their identities, and it's heartbreaking and maddening. But with the autism thing, I am quite obsessive, and I should have known that because there was an incident, probably when I was 12, I think, at the time, um, that I got into trouble for unnecessarily, I might add. I won't go into details because the person in question involved is of some, well, forget it. Anyway, I got into trouble due to my obsessive nature when I was 12. Okay, so that should tell you a lot of things, and just obsessive about anything, like, I got really into candles one year. I mean, I love candles anyway, I love them now. But I got really into candles one year and I started buying them. I've always been a big fan of perfume, and I think one time I collated about 200 perfumes. And yeah, I was mixing them all, but I wasn't really wearing them all. Um, I obsessively research things. If I get interested in something, I immediately go down a rabbit hole. I have to know absolutely everything about it. Facts, dates. I have to know the facts, the dates, this history. I'm fascinated by knowledge, by history. I'm a reader, obviously, as you know. But as the podcast, I watch videos. I am obsessive about a lot of things. And then, as I said in the post, apart from the sounds, I'm funny about tastes and smells, which that's more something that's developed in the last few years. I've never been that fussed about it, but like I can't stand the smell of other people's fridges. Like if you go to someone's house and you open the fridge, like the smell of food in somebody else's fridge knocks me sick. And then also garlic, right? I love to eat garlic. I absolutely love to eat garlic in food. but smelling it on other people and other things really turns my stomach, and I just hate it. There was a time on holiday in Malta years ago, and I remember there was a little bar and they used to cook food, and I remember coming up from the water, smelling the garlic, and I used to have to keep dunking under because it was knocking me sick. And I was 10 at the time. So, and then taste now is that where I'm apprehensive about things. You know, I thought I wasn't a picky eater, but I suppose I kind of am in a way. I mean, I'm a big foodie, like we always joke and laugh, like, I love my food, but I'm also apprehensive that I don't like certain things. But with having, being autistic and the current narrative surrounding it, it's incredibly frustrating to be somebody like me and to try and live in the world where you feel like people just don't understand you. Um, it's very much feeling like an outcast, and it's frustrating because I feel like people just don't appreciate what it actually means to be autistic. And it's kind of hard when you don't have an official diagnosis because there's so much I want to share, like online. But then I feel like sharing it, I feel like I can't because I'm not sort of officially diagnosed, but then I know I am, and and I've got to get that diagnosis, and it's just very, very difficult. So this episode isn't much of a literary episode, as such. But what I thought I would do to sort of finish this off is maybe read an excerpt from a short story that I'm currently writing. I'm not going to say the title or what the actual premise is because it's not fully written yet, but I just want to read an excerpt. Um, I'm not sure where to start from. Possibly, okay, I'll start from here. Lying in bed, I felt an overwhelming sense of melancholy wrapped around my heart like a tourniquet. How can I be so ungrateful? I thought. There are dozens of women across America who would kill to be in my place, and literally are that. So why was I so mellow? Frazzled, I made myself some hot milk with sugar. As I passed the bathroom, I heard a faint whimper, which soon turned into a laugh. Approaching with caution, I found Eden, a granite stater, weeping into a tissue in front of the mirror. A rivet of pink slid down both her legs. So that is possibly enough to generate a bit of interest. Um, it's slow going just due to my current health problems and whatnot. Um, but bit by bit, I got quite a bit done the other night, surprisingly to me. Um, it's more just that it's not fully formed yet. I'm sort of going scene by scene. I'm finding it difficult to sort of put the pieces together. I keep thinking on it. I'm always thinking on this one story, but I'm just trying to think of where I'm going with it. Um, so that's why it's kind of slow going, which is it's frustrating, but I'm just trying to take my time with it. It's hard really because when you're a writer, especially in this climate, you see so many people getting awards and going to all these events, and actually I'm gonna get upset again, but this is what I've found really, really difficult about this chronic illness because I feel like, I can't write as I once could. before all this, I was going to every event. You know, I'm incredibly ambitious as a person, I always have been. I go to every event, I take any opportunity, by both hands, but because I'm unwell, I can't anymore at this point. You know, I see all these opportunities coming out and I can't join, I can't go to these things. Um, I just see all these people getting awards every year and going to all these, big fancy events, and I can't be a part of that because, of my health issues. Um, it's tough, it really is tough. Um, oh God, what? See, I told you we were gonna get everything on this podcast. You've got me crying. But it's tough because writing is all I've ever wanted. It's all I've ever dreamed of doing. Um, like, for example, I love acting, don't get me wrong. I wanted to be an actor as well. I love acting. There's stuff like, I like to do. I love acting. I love baking and cooking, but I don't have the same adoration for those things that I do for writing and books. Like, that's my main, it's all I've ever wanted to do since I was 5, 6 years old, is be a writer. Like, there are things that I'm also good at, but it's just not like, you see these actors like Christian Bale losing all that weight for is it The Machinist? And that's dedication to your craft. And actors put so much into the films. That's their life breath, it's their lifeblood. And that's what writing is for me. But to be forced to sit here at home watching the world go on and people win these prizes and it's not just for the prizes because once I finish the story, I can enter it to 10 different prizes, and I might win one. But the point is that I can't go to the ceremony. The stuff that comes with it after, the benefits you get. People might ask you to go to this, be interviewed here. I have to be selective. I can't leave the house. You know, um, and so that's why I don't enter a lot of things or I'm apprehensive about a lot of things because, I actually can't do a lot these days. And I know I'm crying about it, but there is a bit of hope because, I mean, it's not all of this has been treated, but none of it has been said where, I mean, the results they've said so far have been that my organs are fine, but I don't know. Anyway, there's just a small sliver of hope that maybe one day this will all be able to get under control and I can live my life again. Um, but for now, I've got to accept this is the way things are. Um, but it's difficult because, you know, of course, I love writing for the fact that I love writing, but my ambition was to make it a career. It still is to make it a career. Um, but being chronically ill and all these opportunities where, the world is not for chronically ill people. You enter these competitions or it says there's about 50 different guidelines of formatting for one story that I have to do. And that's particularly difficult right now because of the vision in one of my eyes. And then there's there'll be a ceremony and then the weight of expectation about that is on me at the same time, and maybe that's part of the autism, but then I start being apprehensive about that. Well, I won't enter that because there's a ceremony and I don't want to be the one that ends up not being there. I want to be there to accept the award, but I won't be able to be there. Um, so yeah, things are not as they seem with me, but I've always said I'm always authentic. I never lie. I'm not a liar. I'm always truthful. I sort of want to end, I mean, I read a bit of the story, um, but I sort of wanted to read another poem of mine. Um, this is a ghazal or a ghazal, I should say, called Mono America. It was in response to the presidential election. Pumpkin sallow on the doorstep of Mono America. A womb is now a rental market, pawned to slow America. Paragons of decay charge forward like rabid trees, splitting hairs across indiscriminate mouths of faux America. Charred cigars rain down on our Elysian fields, burning the hearts of groaning wall climbers. Defeated, cut down, woe, America. The eyes of the chalk face bleed out their exorcisms. Show them a rainbow and they will shut numb, sick about co-America. Choice is a flying pig, naked as hatred. Overnight the asylum has vacated its pearls. Oh, America. There you go. And so you apparently had that poem scored by the sound of a very annoying bird that will not be quiet. Um, but yeah, this has been the episode about my autism and autism in general. This was supposed to be a different episode, but due to recent events, I thought I would make this a autism special. So yeah, I have been Courtney from the Maple Moon. This has been the Maple Moon podcast. I hope you're well. I hope if you're not, this provides some comfort. I hope it provides comfort if you are also on the spectrum or neurodivergent. It's really important for us to stick together and to speak out. Um, so yeah, thank you very much for listening, everybody. I will put the relevant show notes and links in the show notes. There's places to donate towards the show if you would like to. Don't feel pressured. And yeah, thank you for listening all. Goodbye.